My name is V, and my pronouns are he, him.
Leah, she, her, and I am a transgender woman.
I'm Winter. I'm 23 years old. I go by they, them, and I consider myself to be non-binary.
How did you discover your identity?
It was a long process. There was always like hints. Like growing up, I was always very much of a tomboy. I always wanted to be around all of the guys, whether it be my friends that were guys or my brother's friends. I just wanted to be seen as like strong and manly, and that was always kind of like in the back of my mind. And so I think it was like 3 years ago at this point, I started realizing that like maybe maybe I'm not a woman, and maybe I don't actually identify with the body that I was born in. So I started asking the people that I was around most if like I could be referred to as she they. Um, and that felt a little more comfortable, but it didn't quite like hit the nail on the head for me. Um, I realized that when I was presenting as feminine, it felt like I was just dressing up, like I was like cosplaying someone that I didn't know. Um, and to a certain degree, I felt the same way when I was presenting more masculine, but I still found comfort in masculinity
Mhm.
as opposed to finding comfort in femininity. And eventually I was like, okay, I'm gender fluid. I'm going to try this out for a bit, see if this gives me the most comfort. When I was referred to as she, her, I was being referred to as this facade that I put on. And after reflecting on that discomfort and pain that I felt during those times, I realized that the reason why it caused me so much discomfort was because it just didn't sit right. It just wasn't me. Eventually, I started asking to be referred to as he, him, because I was dressing a lot more masculine, even with that gender fluid period in my life. And I realized that I'm actually a lot more comfortable being masculine and presenting that way and having people see me that way.
Um, it was like junior year, I think. I had a big friend group sophomore year of a bunch of other gay people, and I always thought myself the straight man. I was like, oh, it's so funny that I hang out with all these people. People probably think I'm gay or something like that. Um, and then junior year, I stopped hanging out with most of them because we all just kind of drifted apart. And it led to a lot of self reflection. I was like, huh, why did I hang around those people? What was the through line with me and all of those people? Um, you just kind of figure it out, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I think it's mostly just because, like, the stereotypical, like, I would wake up and I would be like, man, if I woke up tomorrow a girl, that'd be pretty cool. But I'm not unhappy of my body or anything like that. Um, and then you keep thinking about it, and you're like, that was kind of weird that I thought that. It's not a thought that most people have, I'm sure. And yeah, I had nothing to lose because I didn't really have any friends, so I was like, I might as well just try it out for myself, and then it kind of stuck. So
I think I always knew, especially like into my teenage years, but I think over time I more so just found terms that aligned with what I felt. So like when I was younger, my family was very traditional in like gender roles and stuff, and I was like, oh, that doesn't work for me. I don't get that sense of like fulfillment or anything, and I'm sure a lot of women don't. But like I don't get that. I don't understand that. And then as I got older, I was like, I've heard of people who want to be like boys or the other way around. Maybe I'm like that. Maybe I want to be a boy. And I was like, oh no, that's not right either. So then I didn't I didn't want to be like a girl. I didn't want to be like a daughter or a mom or anything. But being called like a dad, a son, ugh, still the same like it feels cringe for some reason. Like it doesn't align. Um so then into my teenage years when I was on the internet, then I started being introduced to like queer terms and stuff. I was like, oh, this just explains what I've been going through since childhood. That makes so much sense. So I think with a lot of my identity, that's kind of what happened. I knew and I felt it. And as I got older, I just found the terms that fit. I think that was also helped by my family having very traditional gender roles too. Like, you are a woman, you do this. You are a man, you do this. And I was like, what the heck? that's not right. That didn't feel right.
Hmm.
Why couldn't anyone do anything? And then as I made friends too, I made friends with also people who were also in very like traditional households at first. And I'd ask them like, "Hey, do you feel like this is right what we're being taught?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, it's like my duty. Like I'm so excited to fulfill this. I love doing it." And I was like, "Oh, I'm different than this."
Did you have a queer friend group growing up, and how do you think that might have impacted your current identity?
I've always had queer friends
Hmm.
in every part of the umbrella. I've always had friends who are bisexual or transgender or just generally queer and unsure about where they fall under the umbrella. And it helped me realize that like seeing them and loving them for who they are helped me realize that they can also see me and love me for who I am, regardless of wherever I'm at in the journey, wherever they're at in the journey. Like if we decide that we're just not okay with being labeled as like a lesbian or bisexual anymore, we decide that like no, we're asexual or pansexual. Like having that close knit friend group really helped me discover that I can just figure it out, and at the end of the day, like we're still going to be friends, and if there's ever a time that I need to talk about it, like they'll be there.
Yes, actually. But a lot of them didn't know it. A lot of them did, but yeah, from sixth grade onward, pretty much all of my friends were exclusively gay. And I don't think I had a single friend who was a dude up until high school, where a couple of my friends transitioned and ended up being trans dudes. So, like, before I transitioned, I didn't have any friends, who were like me. Um, and all of my, at home, I had four brothers and one sister who I never saw. So, it was like, I feel like you can do the math,
Yeah.
I had a queer friend group before any of us knew we were queer, which is crazy because I think a lot of parents who are scared of their kids being queer and stuff are like, oh, they've been indoctrinated by having friends who, have been indoctrinated by that stuff and pass it along and things like that. I remember being on the playground actually in elementary school, and my friend Naya came up to me and was like, I have to tell you something really serious, and I'm really scared because I don't think my family's gonna like this. But I think I like this girl in my class. And I was like, well, I don't want to tell her I think she's weird because she seems upset right now. So let me take some time to like, come for her and talk to her about this. And she was talking about her crush like any person would talk about their crush. And I was just like, oh, this is just like a person talking about what they're feeling. They're not even, there's nothing really wrong with this. We've remained friends, and I went home and I thought about it. I actually have a journal entry from that day, where I was like writing my feelings out about it. And then I went, there's nothing wrong with it. And then that was that. I was accepting ever since that day.
How often do you feel comfortable presenting how you want in public?
I would say most of the time. If I had to put a percentage, maybe like 85%. Uh, I have always dressed more masculine, more tomboyish, more alternative, and it's something that the people around me kind of expect of me. So whenever I go out in public, I'm very used to not being perceived as like this super womanly person. So like wearing a lot of gender affirming clothing has kind of just fallen into that alternative identity that I've always had.
Hmm.
There are some days that I feel like I'm dressing a little too masculine and I'm like hyper aware of it, but people don't treat me any different. I've always felt a little like uncomfortable and like I stand out in public because of the alternative appearance that I usually have. But now that I've been binding regularly and trying different hairstyles and trying like shopping in the men's section is a really big one for me, because men's clothes make me feel more comfortable in my body. But being someone that people see as a woman in the men's section actively buying for myself and like going into the fitting room and trying clothes on, I always fear that I'm going to get followed or that someone's going to say something hurtful. And at the end of the day, if someone says something hurtful, like I can get over it. But I do fear that there's going to be someone who so strongly believes that what I'm doing is wrong that they're going to hurt me.
Most of the time, but it's mostly because I don't think that I could do it any other way. Like, I feel more comfortable having other people look at me weird than I do going out in a way that I don't feel like true, I guess, to how I represent, you know? If you find a couple of people or a person who understands you, especially as a trans person, most of the time it's going to become such a strong bond that kind of ends up being the only opinion you care about.
Mhm.
Like, obviously, you still take constructive criticism or whatever, but like, as far as your identity goes, you don't really care about what random people think. It's funny because everybody has a different way of being uncomfortable in their skin, before they transition. And for me, it was just like I didn't care at all about how I looked. Like, I literally couldn't be bothered because in my mind I was like, I'm never gonna like the way I look anyways, so I might as well just go out with like fucking ripped sweatpants on and like this fucking Star Wars t-shirt and my long unkept hair that I haven't cut in 4 years because I'm not gonna like what I look like anyway, so who really cares? A lot of people I've heard some trans women like really primp and preen themselves before they like transition because they thought that it would make them feel better about themselves. You know, like when they were presenting as a dude, but I was kind of the opposite of that. I was like, I can't be bothered. I refuse to use a men's restroom because I'm like, I feel less safe there than I would in a woman's restroom. But in a woman's restroom, I feel like the main thing is that somebody's going to feel uncomfortable with me, and then that's going to turn into an issue, and then I'll be made to look like a weirdo. Most of the time, the unsafe that I feel is that somebody's going to like accuse me of something or assume something about me. Um, but yeah, I do feel generally like when I walk around at night by myself,
Yeah.
I feel like I can't risk it.
I think nowadays I don't think too much about it actually. I think when I was younger, teenage years, once again, I think the teen years have been like quote unquote the hardest for me. Um, and a lot of my friends too, the teenagers have always been the harder years. But nowadays I go out and I don't really think about it. I don't really care. I'm like, oh, I like my outfit. I like this. I like, whatever. Um, I'm not like, oh, I dressed too masculine today or I dressed too femininely today. It's always about like something else.
Do you ever fear public backlash for the way you want to present?
Sometimes, but I feel like also growing up as a woman, you receive that backlash for 700 things. Like, anyway, like you get people saying all sorts of things to you anyway. I don't feel like it changed much. Like, maybe the words that they've been saying to me are different, like, oh, why do you dress like that? Those are boys' clothes. But I've also been told that since I was little, so now it's kind of like, okay, I've been dealing with this for 15 plus years now. Who really cares? So, like, if I presented how they want, they'd be like, oh, your hair's too long. Oh, you would look better with shorter hair. Oh, you need makeup. Or you need less makeup. It's like, there, for someone to present as a woman, there is really no winning, I don't feel like, for a lot of people. Because there's always another standard. But if you're going to receive backlash anyway, be happier in how you dress, how you present.
What do you think is the biggest change you've gone through since figuring out your identity?
So since I've started identifying more with how I feel inside, I've become more comfortable just in general around people that I know and don't know. And with that newfound comfortability, I've kind of figured out who I am a little more. I feel more comfortable making jokes. I don't shy away as much from talking to strangers. I've just found this new confidence of existing in the world, and that has been life changing.
Um, I would say the more comfortable that I got in being a trans woman, the less I felt I needed to compensate by being feminine. Like, there are a lot of trans women who, after they transition, I would say most trans women, after they transition, they stick with a more feminine sort of, way of dressing and presenting and everything like that. But, once I felt secure enough in my identity as a woman, I kind of realized that I have no interest in doing things femininely. And I like hanging out with my dad. I like doing things that would be traditionally considered more masculine. Um, the idea of having, huge burly biceps and muscles or, whatever, it's not a turn off for me. And I hate having nails. So, I hate most feminine things, but I love being a woman, if that makes sense. I think probably a lot of it has to do with, like you see like butch lesbians and that sort of thing, and you realize how cool and how special it is to fill a niche in your community, I guess, I guess, okay, I guess the best way that I could put it is that I hate um, how society has created femininity and, you know, all of the restrictions that come with it. But I think being a woman is really cool.
I think being more open with it. When I was younger, I was still like, oh, present how I was born, I don't change it. A lot of it was safety. Grew up in Florida, people would bring knives to school to throw at my friends who were out, things like that. So it made me hide my identity very securely around people unless I knew they were safe. Just so I didn't get bullied or threatened or any of that. It was not safe growing up. My family didn't like it, still doesn't like it. So I just kind of went, oh well, if I hide it, they won't know. But now, especially, I'm in a safer place. I'm more prepared to deal with any sort of backlash. I'm an adult in, living in a different home, so I don't feel like I have to pretend in order to receive what I need to. So I think just being more open about it, standing up for myself when there is backlash, I think that in itself changes kind of how you view your identity too.
Have you faced any backlash for your identity?
For the most part, people in my life are very accepting. I don't really care too much about strangers seeing me as a woman. I don't really see that as backlash. I just see that as they're perceiving me one way, and I'm not really gonna get too torn up about that. But the one person that I would really like to, sorry, didn't think I was gonna tear up.
Do you want to take a minute? Okay, I'll pause.
The one person in my life that has really given me the most backlash is my brother, and it really sucks because we were close. We've gone through hell together with our family, and we both were parents to each other because our parents weren't parents to us. So we have a really good bond, or at least we had a really good bond. And when I came out to him, he said some things that really hurt, like, "You'll always be my little sister." He did also say that he still loves me, but it would be nice if he saw me how I was. I do still appreciate his love, and I do still love him. I just want us to have a really good connection going forward as adults.
Um, not really. Surprisingly, most everyone who I was already close with didn't have an issue with it. I think the biggest problem that I come into um, is that there are people who I have extended family, I guess I should say, who I know wouldn't be comfortable with it, but I haven't spoken to them in a really long time. And it is hard because I used to have a really good bond with them, but it's not worth reaching out at this point. Um, but I would say the biggest issue that I face day to day is that a lot of people in my family, it's not that they don't support it, but they're really uncomfortable with it, and most of them don't know why. So, I'll walk into a family gathering and I'll be wearing like a hoodie and some pants and I'll like burp or something and they'll be like, "That's not very womanly of you." And I'm like, "I guess, who cares?" Um, So yeah, I would say most of the time it's just they're not very good at supporting it. They do, and they don't understand it. And I think a lot of people don't do the dirty work that it takes to be like unabashedly comfortable with it.
Absolutely. In Florida, I when I was younger, it was mostly backlash just because I associated with people who were getting backlash. So, like, associating with the queer people or the punks, emos, things like that. And then I was there and I looked normal compared to them. I think really, in a weird way, set a target on me because I'm so normal. Why am I hanging out with them? And then people were suspicious, but I was like, no, I'm just chilling. I don't really care. They're cool people though. And everyone's like, I don't believe you. Um, and then my family doesn't like them. So actually, when my grandfather started being suspicious that I was gay or any of these things he really doesn't like, he started telling me jokes about them. And this probably lasted, I'd say, 2 or 3 weeks. I lived with them, so I saw them on almost a daily occurrence. But for 2 to 3 weeks, my grandfather would come up to me and tell me a joke where the gay person died at the end. And that was the punchline. The punchline was always that the gay person died. And I never laughed once, and that made him seem like almost more insistent. Um, or then I started meeting people who'd be like, "Oh no, it's fine that you're like that. You'll just decide later on, and that you're not because you'll see the truth. That's not a thing. It's a lifestyle choice and stuff like that. Just as a straight person can obviously decide to be gay." On my mother's side, my grandfather on my mother's side, I did too. I once went up and visited him. He's very traditional. Um, so I went up, I visited him. I did my whole, hey, I'm a straight girl, little pretend thing. And we were sitting down, and I was just letting him talk because he was talking about things I didn't really know nor care about. It was a lot of business stuff. So I was trying to be supportive and like hearing what he had to say, but I was bored. And then he turned to me and said, "You would do really good in business because you shut up and you let the men talk." And I think at that moment I was like, oh, it doesn't really matter who I present myself to be. These negative things, like, I'm going to get told to be quiet, to be different, no matter what.
Have you noticed a difference in how people treat you, whether positively or negatively?
For the most part, I have a pretty like close-knit group of people that I keep in contact with. And I think that generally everyone has been very accepting and has treated me the same way that they've always treated me. But also being 26, my relationship with people are different. Whereas when it comes to my relationships with my family, I'm an adult now, and they still see me as a child. So it's like fighting one and a half battles because they still accept me, but it's new to them, and they have to come to terms with the fact that I'm an adult now, and also I'm not a woman, I'm a man.
Yeah, I would say definitely, especially in the day to day. Obviously, I work retail, and as a cashier, there are a lot of customers who they'll definitely take a meat and just kind of be confused. I won't say anything about it. Most people are either too polite or too uncomfortable to say something about it, but you can tell very obviously that it's they're like a little confused. Um, every once in a while, I got the stray comment. There was at one time I was on campus at Fitchburg, and somebody called me a faggot, or no, it was a fairy. I was like, whoa, we're living in the year 1990 right now. Straight from the Disney Vault with that one, but
Have you had any role models, any people you've looked up to in your gender journey, or any media you've seen that has helped you feel more comfortable or inspired you or anything like that?
I don't know if I would consider them role models, but I've always been interested in like male characters, whether that be in cartoons that I grew up watching or movies that I've watched more recently. Like when I was a kid, I absolutely loved shows like Teen Titans and Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Ed, Ed and Eddie. Like just a bunch of shows that had a lot of male main characters. Seeing Ben 10 like transform into all these different beings, monsters, creatures, whatever you want to call them, was really nice because it showed me that you can change, you know? When I first learned about who Prince was, I was really excited. I really liked what he had going on, and same thing with Elton John and Freddie Mercury. Like I've always been a fan of the fact that they were unapologetically themselves, and they still succeeded. And in a way, I have looked up to them.
Yes, I would say I only have a few. Bosco from RuPaul's Drag Race. She's pretty awesome. I watched her All-Star season. I didn't watch her original season, so I'm kind of a poser. But she is so stunning. I love her personality, and she's really incredible. But the biggest inspiration I would say that I ever had, as far as the whole trans thing goes, is there was one time I was in downtown Northampton, go figure, with a bunch of my friends sophomore year. We're standing on the corner because there's this big intersection where everybody, crosses to get to other sides of the street because there are so many different shopping centers and, whatever. And this like 6 foot tall trans woman, she walks up, she has like, she probably has 4-inch platform like stompers, like, the boots that come up to like your knees.
Yep.
With all the straps and shit. Her entire outfit, plus her hair is pink. These boots are pink. Like you would imagine they'd be black, but they're pink. She had sunglasses on. Her hair looked stunning. And she turns down to us, and the sun is like blocked out by her shadow. I literally felt like that one clip where it's like, easy white chocolate. I wouldn't want you to melt. I was like, holy shit. She looked so fucking badass. And she turns to us. She pulls a cigarette out of her bag. She turns to us and she goes, you kids look like you would have a lighter on you. Do any of you have a lighter on you? I forget who it was, but one of us nervously pulled a lighter out of our bag and like shakily handed it to her. I thought she was so fucking badass. I thought it was just like the coolest thing in the world. Like it felt like a torch was being passed. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like it's like when people talk about like older trans people and they're like, I can't believe we get that old, which is a really sad statement. But I was like, dude, you're probably like 30 and you look awesome. That's fucking awesome. And you literally, anybody on planet Earth would probably have something to say about the way that you're dressed right now, good or bad, and you don't give a fuck. It's the coolest thing in the world.
I don't think I've had like role models necessarily. I haven't been like, oh my god, this is like the person to watch and follow. But there have been like videos here and there where I'm like, wow, I'm like so happy for them. And I get really like emotional thinking about like the struggle that trans people go through in transitioning, or like queer people coming out and finding acceptance. That those have always really hit home. So there's this one Ruby Rose video. I think, what was it? I think it was to a Russ song. And it was of her going from very feminine to very masc. And that was the first time I'd ever been introduced to binding. And I was like, that's an option? And it was such a cool video seeing how, like, just from doing simple things and how your attitude is, you can be seen so differently. And I think that introduced me to a concept I've never thought about before, which is funny because I was pretending to be a straight girl and then was the most masked in my friend group anywhere else. So I'd already been doing that sort of thing, but seeing another person do it, especially a celebrity, a well-known celebrity in a music video, which was like crazy for me back then, was like, what? I was so like flabbergasted. That was awesome to see. Or this In Paris is Burning, which is a great documentary if you've never seen it. There is a scene of two women running on the beach. One of them, which had surgery, I think I teared up during that scene because she seemed so free. And the way she talked, she just had so much passion and happiness in her voice. This is what she was always meant to do. And once again, the people who are against it will always say, after you get the surgeries, you'll be miserable, you'll regret it, you're mutilating yourself and all this. And then I watched this documentary of the people who have done it, and she doesn't. It was one of the happiest I've ever heard a person sound.
Well, do you have anything you're hopeful for? Anything optimistic?
I hope that it's hard to be hopeful in these times, but I hope that fuck, it's hard, man.
Yeah,
It's hard to because it's hard to wish for something realistic.
I understand. Well, anything else?
I think I'm good. Thank you.
You're all done?
Yeah.
Well,
I do like to chat.
all done now. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye. It was so much
Bye.
fun. Now,
Bye.
goodbye. Okay, bye now. How did you discover your identity?
It was a really long process. Sorry, there's a spider. I got distracted.
That's a tick, actually.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's even worse.
That's a red-winged blackbird right there. That's what that is. These reeds, it's the perfect environment for them.
So we're actually here for an interview, not an autism diagnosis. Say anything.
Hello, hello.
Perfect. Touching on that vulnerability you talked about, you said, some vulnerability is uncomfortable and some's comfortable.
You have a tick on your shoulder.
God damn, bro. I'm gonna need to do a full body search after this.
Yeah.
Anyway, not to inspire fear in you, but I found our first tick on my shoe just now. I'm gonna try your position out. It seems promising.
I should have tucked my fucking pants into my shoes or my socks. I'm not kidding. That's the strap. They could be climbing up my leg. Oh, fuck me. I'm like crawling around my brown star right now. Scary times we live in.
Oh,
yeah, put that in the interview. Keep that in.
Maybe I will.
That you can change,
I'm so
No, you're
I'm
good.
so happy for you. I'm listening. You have my full attention. I'm on fucking tick duty this whole interview. At this point, I'm just gonna fucking stand up. I'm sick of these fuckers. Okay. Do you have any other thoughts? Anything you want to say? Anything you want to put out there? Sweet. That was good. That was good.